when you're building an API, you might have multiple developers working with the application on different sides. So for example, if you might have one person working with the front end and another one building the API that the front end is using. So this is, you get like dependencies on each other, especially on the API, because the front end expects stuff to be working. So how does the front end know how to use the endpoints? Of course, you can tell the person, if you're sitting in the same office, you can always like talk to each other. That's actually an option. But on the other hand, you might not be sitting in the same place and you might get like disturbed with all of the questions all the time. So what you can do is you can use the documentation endpoints that I've used, that is kind of like auto-documenting itself. And that's also one neat trick that you can use when you specify the endpoints like we do at one place. So we have all the information available here that a consumer will have to know in order to use the API. But it's not really user-friendly and they shouldn't be able to look into the actual code of the API. You might not want to do that. But what I've done is that I've implemented a documentation endpoint where you can specify the format that you like. And currently I've specified so that it doesn't require any authentication, but I suggest you do implement authentication in it, so because it's quite sensitive data, as you'll see later. So you can see the URL here, and if we test it out in our browser, we can see that it's v1 documentation, and then you specify the format, and I want to view it in HTML. So I type HTML, so I get this very, very nice view. And sure, the background image isn't really good looking, I know that. And at the top you can see all the endpoints. So, and this is dynamic, so when you implement new stuff, it automatically ends up in here. So in here, the front end have everything that they need to have in order to know how to use the endpoints. So for example, in the user/register, if we click here, we go down here, and you can see that this is the register endpoint. So you can see it's a post, you can see the URL and the description, what kind of input it expected to have and what kind of output is expected to have. And also, if they want to look at the actual implementation, they can just click here. So it's expandable, so they can see the handler function. So, and this is also why it's sensitive, because you don't want to have, you might not want to have all users be able to look at this, because this is sensitive data. So you can see the actual implementation for someone like, oh, I'm supposed to, is it the username that I'm supposed to be posting? And they can look in here and say, yeah, it is the username I'm supposed to be looking. And how is the validation done? And this is also good, for example, if you're working on a team that the front end also know Node.js. They can look at this and see, yeah, well, maybe this one is not really good implemented. Maybe you can do it better like this and this. So you get like transparency to stuff. And this should be pretty much done implementing, but of course it's an open source project, so if you want to contribute and see something that's strange or think, oh man, this is crappy done, you should make a pull request and I'll look at it and we'll create an awesome API structure together. But if you want to look at the implementation, it's in the documentation handler. So you can see it's a get docs, and I have two functions, docs with HTML and docs with JSON. So we can look at the JSON also. If you, for example, if you implement, I don't know, some AngularJS and you want to automatically include the documentation or something, I don't know, but you can use it whichever you like in the /JSON, and you get all the, this is the endpoints object pretty much that you get back. So you can see the middleware and the handler name and stuff. So I manually put stuff in here with HTML so that I don't accidentally put something that shouldn't be there. And so then I use the render function, and I'm using mustache, as you saw. So I include my views from the views folder, and here is the docs.html. So this is the HTML site that you get when you go to this view. It's rendered here with the contents from the from this variable called content that is an array. And I shouldn't be digging too deep into this because it should be pretty much implemented, but of course if you see some suggestions for it, please please let me know with a pull request. So as you can see, this is pretty neat, as the backend could see. You can always like refer to the documentation, like you can just look in the documentation and then you'll see how it's done. And this is improvable, of course. Maybe you can put your, I'm thinking about putting the database schema in there as well, so that they can see how the data model looks like. So that's pretty much it, and I hope you enjoyed it. Bye bye.